American culture is very unique, and I don't think we understand how unique it is until we start having friends from other parts of the country. And this, believe it or not, overlaps with some of our theological views and some of our views about God and how we view people in relationship to God and how we view our purpose and what we are to do for money in relationship to all these things. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. I've been enjoying this creator named Jimmy the Great. He does video essays, and this was astonishing because of the scriptural and or theological tie-in. So this video here is called UK versus USA Culture Explained.
Understanding our history gives us this cautiousness to being too optimistic about the future. As well, you have to combine the religious attitudes of the Church of England. The Church of England was very much a believer in the idea of original sin. The idea that humans have fallen from God, we're all inherently bad, although we do have the ability to be somewhat redeemed.
He's saying that the UK's culture is different because of how much of a role original sin and specifically the church plays into this in this doctrine of original. Now, to be fair, there is a difference between total depravity and original sin. Total depravity is a Calvinistic doctrine that views that man is completely, utterly depraved, incapable of doing anything good, whereas original sin says that, hey, you're born broken and you're born a sinner, but you are not completely far gone where you're incapable of doing any good. So two different views. So listen to how he breaks this down.
This has engineered a sort of attitude of cautious optimism. We're not entirely 100% pessimist. Ultimately, if you're the type of person to leave Britain, a established nation that has infrastructure, etc., hop on a boat, travel for weeks, months across uncharted waters to arrive on uncharted lands, to do that, you need at least an ounce of optimism.
They say people who are immigrants and the early immigrant settlers came over and they had higher rates of bipolar disorder, meaning the highs of bipolar disorder, manic episodes, right? Not the lows, but the manic side of it, meaning the hyper optimism is a prevalent amongst immigrants. And they say it's higher in America because of the folks that came over here earlier on and the immigrants that continue coming over here. So we have a higher level of like manic optimism in America. And I think it's because you kind of got to have a few screws loose in order to want to get on a boat and travel across uncharted territory like this.
And this after discovering this new land, which was a crazy thing to go and do. America then went through two great awakenings. I don't know what happened in the first one, if they just hit snooze or something, but the first great awakening was in 1730 to 1740, and then the second one in 1795 all the way up to 1835. So what happened in this was that the religious attitudes of America had evolved. New ideas around like self-improvement, the idea that everyone has the ability to shape their own destiny and their own future.
Notice that he got the CBN logo on here, Christian Broadcast Network. That's so funny to me. I think it's interesting to note that this is around the same time as the Puritans and the American Puritan work ethic. Puritans were also very post-millennial. They believed that they were going to make the world better. So I think there's some theological tie-in to the Puritans in America and how much that actually influenced how Americans view all these things. That Puritans came and developed a country and the work ethic of a country because they were expecting things to get better, right? There's that optimism again. Priest, provider, protector collection is here. Priest, go out and make disciples. Provider, care for the least of these. And protector, be bold in a world that consistently rejects Jesus. Stop being docile. Pick up some merch at blessgod.shop right now. It's only available until Sunday, so get yours now.
Humans can be better. They can improve society. They can make and create things that make the world better.
Everybody, I know you can believe in yourself.
They had strong convictions around the importance of working hard, as well as very pragmatic attitudes, the idea that things should be done well and efficiently. These last two led to a very strong cultural focus on capital.
So things should be done well and efficiently, right? This is, again, the Pilgrims. This is the Puritan work ethic. This is very much a part of our DNA, and it's not in other parts of the world. And you don't really know this unless you go travel a little bit, right? That we're very different and we're very unique in America. And I think these are actually good things, believe it or not.
Capitalism and efficiency in business, which all of this manifested itself in the idea of the American dream.
Now, I'm going to riff on the American dream in a moment, okay? Because I think the American dream is problematic, but not in the way you think. All right, so just bear with me.
American dream is just the ability to achieve. Anybody can do it, but you're not just going to get it because you want it. You got to be willing to work hard. You got to apply a lot of hard work. You got to apply faith. You got to apply persistence. You've got to never, ever give up.
So basically, the idea of the American dream is that any old piece of shit, old Bob who still lives at home with his parents, 40 years old, anyone can go and do anything they want to in life.
But Americans are told they can become the next president of the United States. And they can.
Okay. Do you guys see the flaws in this? I'm gonna get to it in a moment, but there's some flaws to this, okay? So just bear with me.
British people are told it won't happen to you. And they carry that. They carry that with them.
I know what's probably going through your head. You might hear that and think, why are Britain so pessimistic? I mean, we literally had the biggest empire on earth. Why are we so deflated? And so that leads us to a very core cultural difference between England and America, and that is class structure.
I was brought up in a poor family, you know. Really, we had nothing, really. If I could get in the position that some of them people in, I would like to be in it. These lords or ladies or peers, or you're talking about them class of people.
The Curzon's family started.
So he's talking about how in Britain the class structure is different. That that feels more permanent there, where America has more mobility across classes, which is true, by the way.
With William the Conqueror.
In Britain, the idea of class and where you stand socially has been a very core part of our identity. Until very recently, as a Brit, your whole life was decided before you were born. These differences between the upper class and the working class has existed through most of British history. There's like this idea that the upper class are pure blood. They were like chosen by God. They had divine rights. They literally referred to themselves as blue-blooded. And they were much better than the grunts working the coal mines to power their beautiful machinery. And so there's always been this attitude in England of like judgment between the classes. The upper class and the working class hate each other. And class is interesting because it's not just defined by wealth.
We give dinner parties 2 or 3 times a week. This enables us to keep in touch with our wide circle of friends.
We give a wine and cheese do once a month. This enables us to do it on the cheap.
Her mother comes round Saturday nights and drinks my Guinness. This enables her to get drunk to nothing.
Class is much deeper than simply wealth. It's the accent you talk in, the way you behave, the schools that you're educated in, if you're from Cambridge School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, versus the community college. Literally everything you did would be defined by class.
I think working class people in general feel this kind of thing weighing down upon them, and I can't put it into words of what it is. I think people watching this will understand that you feel it pushing you down all the time.
And so there's this understanding that there isn't much class mobility. If you are lower class, even if you got wealthy, you could never be upper class. There's no way. And so
that sucks.
This kind of demoralization spawned a attitude in British people that things can't really get that much better. I'm always going to be judged from basically the background that I'm from. In America, as I explained with the American Dream, the attitude is that anyone can be anything. Americans love the idea of the rags to riches story, the underdog archetype that you see in films like Pursuit of Happiness or The Founder. Class does exist in America, but it is very different. You're probably going to see more things between North and South divides and racial divides. But I do, as a British person, quickly want to make a caveat. The British people have never had like outright defeatism. British people will try in life. They'll try very hard, but we just don't like to get our hopes up. We are optimistic, but just in a very cautious way. Like, Americans might aspire to be a millionaire CEO of a big tech startup, whilst British people will aspire to one day shop at Waitrose.
My wife likes to shop at Waitrose. It's the middle class option.
Apparently, that's like their Whole Foods. Okay, so the class thing is interesting because we really do have upward mobility in America, right? 85% of America's millionaires are first generation rich. 65 of America's billionaires would be our first generation rich, meaning they did not inherit it. They didn't get mommy and daddy's money. They built it from the ground up. Okay, that's staggering. Okay, and so people have a lot of issues with quote unquote American exceptionalism, but it is exceptional because there's no place like it on earth in terms of upward mobility. Okay, and I'm living proof. Single parent household, mother was on welfare. We came as immigrants, right? Very little access, didn't go to a great school, didn't go to a private school, right? And have completely transformed everything about not just my life, but the trajectory of my family tree and everywhere we're going. So I think that's super duper important. But here's the tension with this, like this concept of the American dream, right? The American dream, you can do anything you put your mind to. Anyone can become president. Okay, that's not true. That's not true. And this is what I mean. I cannot become the president of the United States. I wasn't born here. So there's instantly limitations for people that come here and are immigrants. There are certain things you cannot do. I'll give you another example. I will never become a professional basketball player. If you didn't know, that was plan A for your boy. Not in the cards for me. Discovered that when I discovered I was 5'10.5", and my mother's boyfriend, Lyosha, who was sitting in his tighty whities in my living room, drinking some famous Russian vodka, told me something about genetics and how Armenians are not built for the vigorous tasks of playing professional basketball. We're built different. We're built for things like chess and table tennis, okay? So that's just not in the cards for me, right? Like there's certain things that are just not in the cards. So I think the dangerous part is when you tell people that you can be anything, you set them up for two things. You set them up for delusion or you set them up for despair. You set them up for, I can literally be anything. And then if and when that doesn't come to pass, then they are discouraged. And I would propose that there's a third option, that the third option is that you can do things that are within your skill set and that there's a need for. And if you could find something that's within a skill set and there's a need for, and you're semi-passionate about it, well, praise God. That's a massive win. Again, places like that have not existed until recently. Up until recently, you would just do whatever your family trade was, right? And so you would become proficient at something, and there would hopefully be a need for the trade, and then hopefully you would like it enough to continue doing it for the rest of your life. Now, you can develop skill sets to help you and help you earn money and whatever. And so if you're just consumed with the American dream, or let me tell God about my dream. Oh, God, I really, 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 really want to do X, Y, and Z. Instead of saying, hey, God, what did you design me for? What is the time, talent, and treasure I have? What are the things that I have that I'm naturally good at and that I could build on top of? And if I could build on top of these skills, then I could potentially find opportunities to serve people. And if I can serve enough people, then I can make a comfortable living. That's option one. That's option one. Option two is change your expectations. If you want to be a school teacher in America, I'm just being honest. If you want to be a school teacher, meaning in the public school system or even at a private school, if you want to be a school teacher in America, you're not going to ever get to a place where you're making 300, 400, 500 grand a year. That's not going to happen. Okay? That's not going to happen. So you have to adjust your expectations. You have to say, hey, I want to do this, but this isn't going to give me this result. So now my expectation, this is why it's important to not go into debt. This is why it's important to not go into student loan debt. This is why it's important to keep your costs low. This is why it's important to live on a budget. This is why it's important, right? Because then you have flexibility, because it's not all about going and making a bunch of money because you're helping a bunch of people. It's about learning to mitigate your expectations so you can live below your means, and then you could figure out what it is you want to do. If you want to be a teacher, if you want to be a firefighter, if you want to be a police officer, if you want to do those types of jobs, you don't get into those types of jobs because you want to be extremely wealthy. Figure out what you want to do. And if the objective is, hey, I want to build a company, well, then that's different. The sky's the limit on that. And so that is how we would navigate this conversation. Now, again, I don't know enough about the UK and their view of entrepreneurship and their view of these things. But guess what, man? The class divide is only going to get worse. The class divide is only going to get worse. And so you have a choice. You can take the skill set that you have and you can say, I'm going to build on this skill set. I'm going to add additional skills, which, by the way, not sure if you know, you can learn to do almost anything in 20 hours of deliberate focus. You can become proficient in almost anything with 20 hours of deliberate focus, right? I'm learning to write right now. I'm writing a book. Guess what? I'm learning to write. It's a new skill, but it's built on top of the other skills of podcasting, of writing songs, of communicating, of writing sermons. So I'm building on top of that skill right now. You could build on those skills and figure out ways to earn more money if that's what you want. Or you can mitigate your expenses and mitigate the things that you want out of life and go that way. But this whole in between, I can work a stable job with a stable degree, that's going to get harder and harder. Cost of living is going to keep increasing. It's going to get harder and harder. And so, but the best way we can go about it is figure out what our sweet spot is, figure out the things that are needed, and build out something that way. Right? And build out something that way. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with blue collar entrepreneurship. Someone in here earlier was talking about it. There's a lot of plumbers making $200,000-$300,000 a year. I know barbers that are making well into the six figures. Right? You could do really well doing the work that other people don't want to do. And that's okay too. I think the issue is that we've been indoctrinated with the college, go get your degree, do this, do that. And a lot of people ended up playing themselves, right? And a lot of people ended up, shout out to Jessie. She said, my husband's a welder and he takes good care of us. That's right. There's people out here doing really well with being welders, being plumbers, carpenters, people that can build things. So you could also go that route. But this idea that you can do anything you put your mind to, it's nonsense. I'm never going to be an astronaut. I'm never going to be a professional basketball player, right? There's certain things that you're just not going to be able to do. Priest Provider Protector Collection is here. Priest, go out and make disciples. Provider, care for the least of these. And Protector, be bold in a world that consistently rejects Jesus. Stop being docile. Pick up some merch at blessgod.shop right now. It's only available until Sunday, so get yours now.